Welcome to a new daily top AskReddit video. Today's topic.
What isn't nearly as bad as Reddit would have you believe? Your relationship. I mentioned an ex being emotionally immature and someone said he's a covert narcissist. Not every relationship conflict is a sign that someone is abusing you. Reddit is legit the worst place for relationship advice I can think of. Minor dispute. Toxicity. Break up. Your partner did something you didn't like. She doesn't respect your boundaries. Break up. Your partner didn't answer for a couple of hours. Cheating 100%. I think most of the people on here giving advice are some teenagers and or lonely. Angry people. I really enjoy going on those relationship threads and reading the comments. No way those people have been in a healthy relationship. When did we start using narcissist to describe someone exhibiting literally any undesirable behavior? It gets on my nerves so bad. Not everyone is a narcissist FFS. Some people are just your everyday, run-of-the-mill dickhead. This is my big beef. Not everything needs a label to validate it. People can be an asshole without being a narcissist. Some people are just incorrect sometimes. They're not trying to gaslight you. As a father, taking my daughters to the park. Nobody ever thought I was a predator or looked at me suspiciously. If anything, most people gave me positive vibes because they liked seeing a father actively involved. Nor was it strange to see other men. I used to take my friend's early teen daughter to the animal shelter where I volunteered and no one ever looked at me sideways. Anyone who commented thought she was my daughter. I used to hang out and play with another friend's toddler daughter at their coffee shop and everyone who said anything was super positive usually, so sweet. I have no doubt men occasionally run into negative assumptions, but neither myself nor any of my friends have. At my kids' school, half the parents on the school run are dads. 100%. In fact, I find as a man I get way more credit for doing literally anything with my child than her mother does from random strangers. The bar is so lol for us lol. Working through relationship problems. Bad thing happens in a relationship. Reddit advice. OMG, break up now. They're an awful human being. Healthy advice. Communicate. Bad things happen. You're supposed to have low expectations and high standards. Although I agree with this. I will say a lot of posts of a bad thing happening are usually absolutely wild. Like, my boyfriend beat me then robbed a liquor store and fucked his ex. After abducting my 3 children. AITA for not funding his jail account. You do not get explosive diarrhea when you eat Taco Bell. If you do, you need to check for food intolerances. I always did. Turns out Taco Bell uses soybean oil in almost everything, and I am allergic to soy melting face. That's mostly people with IBS enviously downvoting while they remember a time in their life they could suck down Crunch Wrap Supremes without consequence. Source. I miss you. Crunch Wrap Supremes. I've had IBS most of my life. As long as I can remember. I was diagnosed in early childhood. I've stopped trying to eat within my restrictions, cause pretty much everything can trigger it. There's no rhyme or reason I've found. I can eat something one day and be perfectly fine. Then eat the same thing the next day and spend half the day going back and forth between the bathroom and my room to lay down. My mental health. Not everything means I'm a sociopath with AD. There was another thread recently about things that are less common than people think, and my answer is personality disorders. Swear to God, Redditors think disorders are Pokemon and the objective is to catch them all. Seeing both sides of an argument. God, this site runs on absolutism. You would have thought they'd have learned absolutism sucks from Baldur's Gate 3. Authority. Even if you're firmly on one side of an argument. If you comment about how you understand why the other side holds their particular views. You're crucified and called a Nazi. The worst is when you explain something. And then people start asking questions trying to poke holes in it or whatever. It's like people do not understand the difference between explaining a concept and defending that concept. It's not even politics, you see the same black and white mentality with other arguments. Like if a historical figure wasn't a perfect person and had normal human flaws, then they must have been a completely worthless piece of shit with no value. And any achievements they had must be invalidated. Going to social events, and or having a large or multiple friend circles. Just because someone is an acquaintance and not a best friend is not a bad thing. You can still enjoy their company. 100%. A lot of people never learn that relationships aren't all or nothing. You can have a different level of closeness with each person you meet. Some relationships work better at a distance, some work better with intimacy. You can value distant relationships just like you value a best friend. Me not wanting to be your bestie doesn't mean I don't value your company. Low-key, the best high school classmates to run into as an adult are the ones that you barely talk to. Because you both acknowledge that there wasn't anything wrong with the other. You just didn't have much in common, but there was still mutual respect. And now you've both grown as people and have become adults with rewarding careers. Everything. This site loves to complain and take everything to the extreme. I think a big part of the reason is that a large percentage of the users here are kids who don't know shit about anything. Well, that and people who have good lives generally have better things to do. Extroverts. I got adopted by one once. You know what I did? I got out of my comfort zone. I met new people. I tried new things. I had a blast. Quit giggling over cancelling plans last second and fucking try saying yes sometime. That is because Reddit as a whole misunderstands what an introvert is. An introvert can be very outgoing, confident, popular, and enjoy company of others. I am an introvert. I have to have the majority of my time spent alone or I feel exhausted. I am also very popular. I get invited out often. I have exactly zero anxiety about public speaking or talking to a stranger. I have zero trouble standing up for myself or confronting problems. Reddit thinks social anxiety and their lack of social skills makes them an introvert. It makes it easier for them to accept it instead of working on bettering themselves. Seriously. It drives me nuts how often introverts on Reddit are basically lamenting how introversion keeps them so lonely and how they are practically bitter about people with social lives. Newsflash. You aren't an introvert. You are basically a failed extrovert with poor social skills. I do fine socially. I have no problem talking to strangers or meeting new people. I just like spending time alone. It never bothers me. If it does, you aren't a fucking introvert lol. Neuroplasticity. Walk outside of your usual path. It literally changes the brain. Being an introvert doesn't mean commit to staying inside by yourself for the rest of your life. Breaking out of your comfort zone can improve your mood and maybe even help make a connection or find a new interest you never knew you needed. Exactly. I'm highly introverted. Even when I took the MMPI for an ADHD evaluation, they were like, God, you're introverted. But their suggestion wasn't to just shut myself away with tea and a good book. It was to get out there. Know my limit, of course. And make a polite exit when I've reached it. But make an effort to talk to people face to face. We're social creatures. Even for us introverts, Discord isn't a substitute for human interaction. The 9-to-5 cubicle job. As someone who thought he'd do manual labor and retail bullshit their entire life, I love my office job. I feel that. I have a lot of friends who constantly complain about how much they hate their work from home jobs. I get that all jobs have degrees of stress and can suck, but I'd kill for one of their jobs over the physical labor I've done most of my life. The biggest downside as someone who went from a physically demanding job to an office career is that work stress doesn't end when the day is over. When I worked more physical jobs, the shift is over and the work is done. I don't have to think about shit. I just go home and work is out of mind until I clock in the next day. Office work, unless you just stick with a low-level position forever, begins to creep into your entire waking life. You always have countless projects going on, and it's very hard to get the mind to stop thinking about them after hours. I miss that very much about working a more physical job. Clocking out for the day and truly being done until the next shift. After working in retail and warehouse jobs as a teen, my main requirement for a career was that I get to sit down most of the time. I worked in a grocery store unloading the truck and stocking, and my main goal was to work Monday through Friday 8 to 4:30 with holidays off, and I'm living the dream these days. Agreeing to disagree and moving on. The average Redditor gives advice like being correct, and proving one's correctness is extremely important, even in causal conversation. As someone who used to be that way, I cannot emphasize how much less stressful life is if you're willing to just move on and compromise. Even if you think you're 1000% right. Obviously there are things you should never compromise on, but those are a lot easier to recognize when you let the small disagreements go. I think some people just like to argue. Pair that with the trend that Redditors try to be contrarian and you end up with a conversation as pleasant as hemorrhoids. I'm circumcised and I've had a very happy and fulfilling life in which I also love my parents. According to Reddit, I'm actually deeply traumatized and my parents are monsters who hate me. The circumcision thing is always weird to me. Like, in principle, I can see why people think it is wrong and why people say we should probably stop doing it. But I've never felt angry that I was circumcised as a baby. It has never had any negative effect. So I always feel a little surprised when I see people who are genuinely very upset about it. Same here. American guy, circumcised at birth like most of my generation. Millions of American and hundreds of millions of Muslim guys. And Jewish guys. Live perfectly functional lives without their foreskin. I know it's not necessary and TBHIDK if I'd circumcise my sons if I had kids. But the outrage over the practice boggles me. People need to find another cause. Something I have never thought. As a circumcised man, boy, I wish sex felt better. I always wonder, how could you ever measure that? You'd have to have a group of people who haven't had a circumcision have a lot of sex. Get circumcised, then report their pleasure levels afterwards to compare. I doubt you'll find a group like that, and relying on self-reporting is pointless. I'm uncircumcised and I know my pleasure is better during sex. Quote, how do you know? Quote, I just know. Exclamation mark. Quote, Not having a bidet. Buying a new car instead of a used one. Going to college if you have an actual career goal in mind. Buying a new car instead of a used one. Buying any car with features beyond what is offered by a base 5th gen Honda Civic. Manual transmission. Is blasphemous on Reddit. My one regret with my car is not getting a higher package. For $20 per mo I could have had heated and cooled seats. I wouldn't miss that money now. But I sure would like temperature controlled seats in the Michigan winter. And don't you dare mod it or you're an asshole with a small penis. Someone can't have different hobbies than the hive mind. God forbid you find different things fun. OMG the bidet one. I've tried a bidet once and I was like, nope, do not like the feeling of water going up my butthole at all, but I swear. There are actual literal big bidet shills all over AskReddit or something with how much people swear by them. Big TP propaganda right here. Honestly it takes a few tries, but also you're not supposed to put the water up your butthole. Just around it. Edit. Yes you can actually put the water up your butthole if you want. Reddit likes to promote any topic that can be viewed in some way as anti-American. Bidets are not very common in America. And very common in Europe. Hence all the people promoting how amazing and hygienic they are. Nah. Bidets are a porcelain god I'd be happy to worship at.